Let the food be sold to all who need it when the lean years come.
And Pharaoh gave thought to the words of Joseph and believed them. And he said,
"Since God has shown you all this, you shall see it is done as you say. Behold, I give you power over all the land of Egypt, second only to mine."
And Joseph went out over Egypt, and he gathered up a fifth part of all the grain that grew in the next 7 years, and stored it up in every city. And then the lean years came, and the people hungered. And Joseph opened all the storehouses, and in Egypt there was bread. But it was not so in the countries nearby. Because of the crop failure, Joseph's brothers came to Egypt to buy grain. Joseph recognized them. The reunion was an event of rejoicing as Joseph forgave them, saying,
"It was God who sent me ahead of you to Egypt to save men's lives."
And Pharaoh rewarded Joseph by welcoming his family to live in Egypt and prosper. And God promised Jacob, Joseph,
"Do not be afraid to go to Egypt. I will make you a great nation."
The burning bush. When Joseph ruled over Egypt in the name of the Pharaoh, his people, the Israelites, prospered and raised large families in the land. But then the old Pharaoh died, and so did Joseph. And a new Pharaoh came to power in Egypt, and he said,
"Behold, the people of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. They must not become any stronger."
And Pharaoh set taskmasters over them, and put them at hard labor to make their lives bitter and break their spirit. But the children of Israel remained strong, and their number increased. Then Pharaoh said to the people of Egypt,
"Take every baby boy who is born to a Hebrew woman and throw him into the river Nile. But let the girl babies live."
So it was that one day when Pharaoh's daughter went down to the river to bathe, she found a little basket floating in the reeds. And in the basket was a Hebrew baby, a boy. The baby had been left there by his mother because she knew Pharaoh's daughter was kind-hearted and would not let him die. And she was right. For Pharaoh's daughter took the boy back to her palace and brought him up as her own, and the name she gave him was Moses. And Moses was a prince in Egypt. But Moses never forgot his own people. One day he saw a taskmaster whipping a Hebrew slave, and he struck down the Egyptian and killed him, and hid his body in the sand. But word came to Pharaoh, and he sent men to slay Moses. So Moses fled out of the land of Egypt and went to the east, to Midian. Moses found peace in Midian. He took a wife and helped her father tend his sheep. But in Egypt, the people of Israel groaned in their bondage and cried out for help. And God heard their cries and remembered his promise to their fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that he would make them a nation with a land of their own. So it was that one day, when Moses took the sheep to graze on Mount Horeb, suddenly he saw flames of fire burst forth from a bush, but the bush itself did not burn. And then God called to him from out of the bush,
"Moses! Moses!
Yes.
Do not come any nearer. I am the God of your father. holy ground.
Yes, Lord.
I have seen the suffering of my people in the land of Egypt, and I have come down to free them and bring them out to a land flowing with milk and honey, the land of Canaan. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring them forth.
But who am I, Lord, to do such a thing?
I know Pharaoh will not let them go unless he is forced to. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with wonders. Then will he do it.
Then Moses went away from the holy place down into Egypt land. But only after a long, long time, when God had worked many wonders. Only then did Pharaoh let the people go.
Escape from Egypt.
Moses went down to Egypt with Aaron his brother, and they went to Pharaoh, saying,
The Lord, the God of Israel, says to you, let my people go, so they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness.
Who is the Lord? I do not know him. I will not let his people go.
And Pharaoh was so angered, he ordered the taskmasters to force the children of Israel, who were their slaves, to work still harder. So their suffering increased. And Moses turned to the Lord, saying,
Why have you done this to your people? Why did you ever send me, since I spoke to Pharaoh in your name? He has heaped misery upon us, and you have done nothing to help us.
You shall see now what I will do to Pharaoh. He will send my people forth. He will drive them out.
And Moses warned Pharaoh that God would bring great troubles down upon Egypt unless the children of Israel went free. But Pharaoh refused to believe him until the troubles came. First the waters turned red as blood, and no one could drink them. Then the land filled with frogs. They entered every house in Egypt, even the palace. Mighty Pharaoh grew frightened.
Stop it! Stop the frogs! I will let your people go!
Will you?
Yes! Yes!
But then Pharaoh broke his word. He would not let them go, not even when God brought new troubles upon Egypt. Flies and gnats and locusts that ate the crops, hailstones that flattened everything to the ground, and darkness in the middle of the day. Still, Pharaoh would not let them go. Then the Lord said to Moses,
One plague more I will bring upon Pharaoh. Then he will let you go.
And that night the Lord struck down the firstborn in Egypt. Not a house in Egypt was without its dead. But the angel of death passed over the homes of the children of Israel, because their doorways were marked, as the Lord had commanded, with lamb's blood, and they were spared. And Pharaoh cried out,
Go! Leave Egypt! Take your flocks and your goods, and be gone!
That very night, the children of Israel left Egypt, all of them, and their numbers were many thousands. And the men of Israel went up from the land ready for battle. And as they marched, the Lord went before them, by day as a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, by night as a pillar of fire to give them light. But now Pharaoh's men came to him, saying,
What have we done?
We've lost our slaves.
Not for long! We will bring them back!
And Pharaoh mounted his chariot and ordered out all his troops, and they set out after the children of Israel. The army of Egypt came within sight of the Israelites, where they had camped beside the sea. And the people feared for their lives, for the Egyptians seemed so mighty. But Moses said,
Fear not, The Lord will fight for you.
And it was so. For the angel of God stood between the children of Israel and the Egyptians, and the pillar of cloud stood behind them. So Pharaoh's men could not see to attack them. Then, at God's order, Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind, and made dry land where the sea had been. And the children of Israel went out into the midst of the sea, with a wall of water on their right and a wall of water on their left. And now the Pharaoh saw them fleeing, and he called to his captains,
After them! The slaves must not escape!
and the Egyptian chariots thundered after them. And God said to Moses,
Stretch out your hand over the sea, and let the waters come back.
and Moses did as the Lord commanded. And Pharaoh cried out to his men,
Run! Run for your lives! The Lord fights for Israel! Save yourselves!
But it was too late. Of all the chariots and horsemen, of all the army of Egypt that had gone into the sea, not one remained. And Moses said,
Who is like you, O Lord, in might? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, working wonders? You are my strength and my salvation, and you will reign forever and ever.